This horrid flying creature looks like a cross between a large bat and an oversized mosquito. Its legs end in sharp pincers, and its long, needle-like nose slashes the air as it seeks its next meal. Sturges feed on the blood of living creatures, attaching and draining them slowly. Although they pose little danger in small numbers, packs of Sturges can be a formidable threat, reattaching as quickly as their weakening prey can pluck them off. Today we're going to talk about a seemingly insignificant monster in the monster manual, just one of the many creatures that you probably quickly pass over when reading the book. And you could argue that this might literally be the weakest actual monster in the manual outside of, critters like rats and sheep. The thing is, these guys do have some interesting secrets, but before we get into them, let's talk about our sponsor today. This video is brought to you by Stirges Codex of Companions. Look guys, it is a book with around 150 pages filled to the brim with content that revolves completely around pets. If you've ever been that player who was into the idea of having an awesome warlock or a wizard familiar but was disappointed by how little options you had, or if you were ever interested in having your character adopt a dog or a parrot or a magical creature like a Tressym or a small yeti, if you ever wanted a dedicated system for interacting and bonding with wild animals, if you ever even remotely thought about the idea of having your pet battle someone else's pet, if any of these things sound interesting to you, then this is the book for you. I'm just gonna go ahead and scroll through many of these pages so that you guys can see. They've got more than 100 pets in here for you to choose from, each with their own lore, stats, rarity, diet, taming difficulty, and more. Plus, these pets are more than just eye candy. They can actually help you. Some pets have the scavenger trait where they can help you find food or water during your travels. Others are great at helping you traverse the sea. And then there's, of course, the koala, which just sleeps and gets a point of exhaustion after every single attack. Hey, there's a thing for everybody. If you're interested, click on the description below and get yourself a copy of Stirges Codex of Companions. But now, back to the video. This is the monster manual entry for the Sturge, and yep, it is really small. So small in fact that they only get half of a page with only 3 small paragraphs to their name. The creature is quite straightforward. It's basically an enormous mosquito with bat-like features that drinks blood, a blood that it takes from you, the adventurer. It says here, a Sturge attacks by landing on a victim, finding a vulnerable spot, and plunging its proboscis into the flesh while using its pincer legs to latch on to the victim. Once the Sturge has sated itself, it attaches and flies off to digest its meal. The stat sheet is also pretty small. You can see that it has quite a decent natural armor, though of course you should know that it comes entirely from its ability to evade blows, not from its ability to take it. It has only 2 hit points, so virtually any single attack will kill it. It has a flying speed of 40, which is important because it means that the vast majority of characters will simply not be able to catch up to it if it wants to run, or more importantly, you would not be able to run away if it wants your blood. It can also see in the dark and has 1 single attack. The creature basically pierces your skin with its nose and then starts sucking your blood at a rate of 1d4 plus 3 hit points every turn. After absorbing 10 hit points worth of blood, then it simply stops and flies away. But there it is, a very simple, a very straightforward entry for the Sturge. So, now that we know what they tell you, let's go ahead and talk about what they don't tell you about the Sturge. The first thing to mention is that there are actually many different kinds of Sturges, some which live in the desert, others that live in the jungles, and then the ones that you are aware of, which typically live in plains and forests. All of these different kinds of Sturges behave and even look differently, which of course results in much confusion as to how a Sturge is actually supposed to look like and what it can actually do. The interesting bit is that the hairs that you see on their body are not actually hairs, but instead feathers. A better description of a Sturge would be to say that they are a cross between a bat, a mosquito, and a bird, which is in fact how they were actually described for many of the previous editions. Though the bird part has been slowly deteriorating, of course. The feathers are rusty red to red-brown, their eyes and feet are yellowish, and their proboscis, which are their big needle-like nose, are pink at the tip and then gray at the base. Now there's a few really interesting things about these creatures. For one, you probably didn't know that Sturges have heat vision. And when you look at their stat sheets in 5th edition, you might have noticed that for such a weak creature, they actually have a great chance to hit. And mathematically, it does make sense since they have a +3 to dexterity and presumably a +2 proficiency modifier, but this is done on purpose. Throughout every single edition, their chance to hit has been amazing when compared to the rest of their stats, including during 1st and 2nd edition where your chance to hit was actually directly correlated with how many hit die you had. They literally made it a thing to mention that even though they only have a small hit die, that they should hit as if they had way more hit die. This is all because of their incredible ability at finding weak points and striking exactly where they need to. This is again because of their ability to sense heat. When a Sturge fights an adventurer who is clad in heavy armor, the layer that is protected will appear to them as cold, whereas any point of exposed flesh would appear to them as hot. This allows the Sturge to very quickly access where to strike. You can, however, literally cover every single part of your body in armor and basically be invulnerable to attacks from a Sturge. This is something that you can do, though it is not something that was added to 5th edition, but it is most certainly canon. It is also described that if any creature had a natural armor of around 14 or higher, then they were effectively immune to Sturges as well. So a creature like an owlbear, for example, would never have to worry about them since their hide was effectively too thick to be penetrated by them. This is why you can find Sturges happily living in dragon lairs, since the Sturges are not able to feed on the dragon and the dragon is not bothered by them. Also, in the 5th edition monster manual, they added this thing here that says that you can simply spend an action to remove them from your skin, like grabbing them and then deattach them. But they don't actually mention at all how damaging that would be for you. See, Sturges have these claws for legs that they basically use to hook onto your skin when they are sucking you, and then attempting to yank them out would completely disfigure and break apart parts of your muscles. It would be as if someone stapled your hand and then you would try to remove it. You could do it, but it could cost you a lot of damage. In any case, Sturges which have had their fill of blood become extremely lethargic, which the monster manual did not tell you. If you manage to find a nest of Sturges who are sleeping off their meal, you can almost certainly freely kill them since it takes them a few rounds to even wake up, and then after they do, they would wake up dazed and slowed. A Sturge who filled up completely with blood generally could sleep between 4 to 7 days before needing to feed again, at which point it would typically only have a day or so to eat before it starves to death. Sturges are generally very content to subsist with animal blood, but they very much prefer human and demi-human blood whenever they have a chance at obtaining it. If they find that there is a human settlement that they can feed on, they would always attempt to change their routes and adapt so that they can get humanoid blood. This brings me to an incredible and important fact that the 5th edition manual also left out, which is that Sturges can actually communicate with each other extremely well. They use chirping movements similar to that of crickets and the movements of their nose in order to talk to each other. They have the ability to communicate that food nearby or that a dangerous enemy has been found. They can tell each other the direction, the size, and the strength of the meal, as well as communicate either urgency or excitement. It didn't really do much strategizing, especially in combat. It's basically every Sturge for itself when shit hits the fan. All they really care about is sticking their nose in you and then sucking your blood. But when they're out scouting about for food, they can actually be very communicative. A great example of this is how they separate in order to search their territory. A typical nest of Sturges houses around 30 or so of them, but instead of all of them going together as a massive swarm wherever they go, they instead separate into groups of 3. When a trio of Sturges finds a target, 2 of them will harry or follow you, while the third will go back to the nest to inform the whole community of their findings. At which point, those who were told all gather as an actual swarm and then find the target as a group. So they are very smart about the way they go about doing it. When a swarm of Sturges attack a target, typically they like to have a max of 6 of them on a single creature because, well, that is typically the optimal amount of blood on a medium-sized creature for each of the 6 Sturges to become full before the target dies. Now, in spite of the fact that they have the ability to absorb blood from anywhere on the body, they always prefer to attach themselves to the trunk instead of the extremities, and preferably on the back of a person rather than on the front. And they understand that a humanoid cannot truly defend themselves when they are attached to the back. If a Sturge is stuck in you, instead of trying to simply yank it away from your flesh, it is always best to try and kill it. Once a Sturge dies, its muscles relax and its claws retract into their bodies, allowing you to very easily pull it out of your skin. Alternatively, open flames directly applied onto the body of a Sturge will force it to release. For this to work though, the flames would have to be strong enough to basically also hurt you. In the dark, you hear the fluttering of leathery wings. A shape darts across your path, disappearing into the shadows. A stench, metallic and acrid, hangs heavy in the air. Yellowed bones of myriad creatures, some humanoids, some otherwise, litter the ground. A strange foreboding sensation tugs at your mind, and as the hairs stand on the back of your neck, you realize it's too late. The horrid beasts, a monstrous mingling of oversized mosquito and a bat, descend from concealment, seeking only your blood. Let's talk about the Sturge anatomy. The Sturge has an interesting liquid that it creates and coats its nose with, which is contained at the tip of the nose. It is a clear liquid that is constantly replenished and functions as an anticoagulant. When the Sturge drinks blood, the liquid mixes with the blood and prevents the blood from clotting in the nose or in the stomach. The stomach of the Sturge functions as a storage bag, and from this reservoir, the body draws small quantities of blood into lesser cavities located just beneath its backbone. There, its body converts blood sugar into body energy and ingested blood into plasma balanced for its own bodily use, so that it can replace its own lost blood and hasten its recovery from wounds. See, the regenerative properties of a Sturge are actually quite impressive. As long as the head and spine remain relatively undamaged, a Sturge can completely regrow any part of their body in a matter of 1 to 3 months, regenerating wings, legs, or maybe even complete parts of their torso. The body of a Sturge is typically filled with disease, so it is very dangerous to eat. Further, they also possess the ability to transmit these diseases whenever they inject themselves onto a creature. Unfortunately, the chances are actually pretty low, just about 5% chance of actually contracting a disease. Though eating the wrong part of their body would almost guarantee you becoming sick. You can eat fresh Sturges, but only immediately after killing them, and only if you eat from behind the head and atop the spine, roughly around the base of their wings. That's the only edible portion of their body. Anywhere else, and you basically get, well, diseased. Now, because of their bodies, Sturges are also completely immune to poison. I guess because they're basically all poison. Now, unlike other similar animals, winter doesn't actually affect Sturges in any way, and the reason they can swarm up easily when not dealt with is because they can reproduce freely all year round. Sturges give live birth in litters of 1 to 3 young, with a gestation period of 6 months. There is really no discernible difference between males and females to the humanoid eye, and both are exactly the same size. Baby Sturges require a fair amount of care from their mother during their early months in order for them to survive, since when they are small, they basically cannot fly at all, and yet they feed similarly to that of adult Sturges. See, the Sturge mothers can't really vomit blood into their noses, and so mothers are basically forced to literally carry their babies on their back as they hunt for prey. When a mother attaches to a creature, the babies on her back attempt to attach as well. Even when she's finished, she will wait for her babies to be done before flying away. And she will have to do this for the next 4 months, at which point they would grow to about half an adult's size and gain the ability to fly. It will then take another 3 months for them to grow into the actual full adult size. Now, the interesting thing is that the body of the mother is only big enough to carry 2 babies, yet it is very common, like we said before, for a mother to give birth to 3 children. What happens is the 3rd baby is generally left to fend for itself or simply perish, and basically forced to find critters on the ground to suck on, since it cannot fly. Other Sturges refuse to help someone else's baby, and so, generally this 3rd one dies. And the same thing applies to any baby who falls off their mother's back. The mother will simply not pick them up again. Quite brutal. Now, back to our early discussion at the beginning of the video. Outside of these classic Sturges, there are also another set of 2 which are basically almost entirely new species. The desert Sturges resemble mosquitoes much more than normal Sturges do. In fact, the only thing that they have in common with normal Sturges really is their enormous nose, because everything else is basically different. These guys don't even fly, their bodies being so big that they instead rely on burying under the sand to ambush their prey. And they are very well known for their really long jumps too, where they can cover grand stretches of distance by simply jumping from place to place. The jungle Sturge simply looks like an overgrown giant version of the traditional Sturge. Here is a great picture to show you just how unbelievably big they are. And they are described as being twice the size of a normal Sturge. And they can fly, but they're not quite as adept, and instead rely more on hiding above the trees and then falling on adventurers. And these guys are interesting because their noses have a powerful poison that they secrete whenever they inject themselves on another, a toxin that paralyzes their prey. It is said that this poison is highly praised by many jungle tribes who know of it. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to go over to MrRex.com to check out our merch. We got some really cool stuff that you guys should definitely give it a look. But I would also like to personally thank my Patreon supporters: Barry Mascan, 5e Magic Shop, Morgan Johnson, Rusty Rain, Duck Feeder, The Great Codini, Omega Skills, Alex Cookson, Benjamin Bosters, Falky951, Ordoric, Sabim Kurshap, Sir Lawrences, Thomas Hunt, Nathan McComb, Soulless Rider, Lost Crusader, Mr. Salty, Stalia, JD Green, Olaf Kleb, Treb909, Brian Camp, Chad Aga, John the Wicked, Steven, Tony Arcee, Famine52, George Fortland, Sovereign Mind, Trevor Hess, Draglogia5, The Living Guild Pack, Michael Walker, Streeblow, Describe, Herbert Johnson, The Wizard's Vault, Dragon19, Guy97, James the Perverted, Shoddycast, Hiram at Questing Under Their Influence Podcast, Horrorbound, Jeffrey A. Alexander, Jesse Feliciano, John Callio, and Hellion Vantamain for supporting me on Patreon at the $25 level. If you would like to support me as well, then please head on over to patreon.com/MrRex to support. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you guys for being here. Leave a like. Please subscribe. Many of you don't subscribe. Do it. Subscribe. Click that button. And I'll see you all next time.